Hi everyone, welcome to this first follow-up video on our 3-week series on vocation. This is the first video on the idea of vocation as a continuum. And I want to begin by just saying that these videos are for anybody. Whether or not you made it to the synchronous Zoom time where we had this discussion, you're welcome to use this video to explore the ideas of vocation. It'll be short and sweet. We're just going to review the spiritual practice we talked about, candle time, the main ideas we touched on of purpose, call, and then vocation. And then I have 2 more ideas for how to keep reflecting. So to begin, I invite you to find a candle or a way to create some light. Maybe it's your flashlight on your phone like we did on Sunday if you were there. But light your candle. We always begin candle time in the name of the Creator and the Rebel and the Holy Advocate. And sometimes when I make the cross, I like to mark my forehead where the cross is made during the season of Lent, if you've ever done that. And very often when you're baptized, the cross is drawn on your forehead. Whatever feels comfortable to you. To begin this follow-up, again, let's review those words we talked about. So remember we talked about purpose as sort of that end destination, that point on the horizon where your life and your vocation and your callings are all sort of moving towards. Your purpose is not just one thing, but filled with all of the diversity of who you are and your experiences and your different passions, both in school and in work and in your everyday life, in your relationships. It's that sort of endpoints that we're moving towards as we go through life. If it's in that spiral symbol, it's sort of the point at the end that is still moving outwards, but we're going towards. And then calling is sort of those little points all along the way. Some of them more prominent than others. Those nudges, those people we've met that have changed us some way or urged us in one direction or nudged us towards something or taught us something new. That's all part of vocation. Those callings to different purposes. For example, if you learn about something that really changes how you think, you might feel a calling towards that, or you hear about an injustice that you feel like you want to do something about. That's a calling. They can also be smaller things too that are speaking to who you are. A calling to start a new musical instrument, a calling to maybe at some point start studying something new. All those little points along the way, those callings. And then sort of the glue holding this all together, that journey to purpose, callings along the way, is your vocation. It's the long journey, the sort of road on which you're answering callings and moving towards that purpose on the horizon. And we can only see vocation clearly by looking back. That's the only way we can kind of think, oh, here are all the different parts that brought me to this moment. Because it's continually shaping and continually moving forward. So those are purpose, callings, and vocation. I invite you, if it feels good to you, to pause this video. And the first idea for an activity I have is to sort of reflect on your own journey of vocation. When have you felt a sense of calling? Like, oh, I've noticed this in the world and I want to do something about it. Or, wow, this person really inspired me by what they said or did, or how my relationship with them has grown. They've shaped me, and that's sort of a nudge towards my own vocational journey. What do you feel like your purpose is? Maybe this can be something that and should adapt and change throughout life, but you can consider that end goal or that end point, the different things that create your purpose. Yeah, so I invite you to reflect on this vocational journey you've been on so far. And the way I would suggest doing this, you can do it however you would like, but actually to turn it into a drawing. We talked about that symbol of the spiral during our discussion, and that sort of central point where we begin life and then we move outward, and it's a continuum of growth and learning about what vocation means. So you could take a piece of paper and draw sort of a spiral, and all along the way, like, write out points from your childhood, from things in school, from people you know now or that you have in the past couple years, different ways you felt calling and different ways your vocation has grown throughout your life. You might jot down important people in your life that have shaped you. You might remember specific events or activities that were really inspiring to you for some reason, and they've stuck with you. Yeah, and you can start it now and keep working on it throughout the week until our next conversation, or throughout life. But it is something kind of fun to reflect on. Yeah, so you can draw that spiral as the drawing reflection. You can do a timeline where on the left is birth, on the far right is where you are right now, and all the points in between, whatever feels good to you. So take a few minutes to pause this video and start that drawing, and then resume if you'd like to learn the next piece, which is deep listening. Welcome back, everybody. I hope you took some time to begin a drawing of your vocational journey and thinking about the different ways you've been called, the purposes or purpose you might feel drawn to in your life, and that journey along the way of vocation. Now, in conclusion to this first video, I want to offer the idea of deep listening. Deep listening goes back to that idea that we ended with last Sunday of the sound of the genuine, that sort of inner voice that is who you truly are and brings out these vocational things in you. So deep listening is something done with another person, usually just a group of two, although you can expand it to be a small group as well. And the idea is someone begins as the question asker, and the other person is the recipient. And during this practice, and it is a spiritual practice, the question asker can only ask questions. You might have guessed that. But the idea is they can't ask any specific follow-ups until the recipient has finished speaking. They can't make comments while the other person is reflecting. When we're in a normal conversation, we might say like, oh, that reminds me of a time when this happened, or oh, I relate to that, or oh yeah, this reminds me of this thing. We're always kind of listening to respond, which is fine in normal conversation in most contexts. But for deep listening, and what makes it a very intentional spiritual practice, is that all we're doing as the question asker is listening. And the idea is the recipient is speaking things from the sound of the genuine in them. And through this process, they're learning more about themselves. And it's not one-sided, because you can do this by setting a timer. I would suggest maybe a half an hour or 45 minutes to start. You think that seems like a long time, but it really goes quickly as you start expressing and talking about the sound of the genuine in you. But you can, of course, always start with 15 minutes if that seems more approachable. And after that timer goes off, the recipient finishes the question they were answering or the idea they were ruminating on, and then you switch. So the recipient becomes the question asker becomes the new recipient, and you just set the timer again and you listen. And that's deep listening. Just to frame this, I'll give some prompts for this deep listening practice. You can ask any questions as the question asker that come up in you as you're listening to the other person, but some ideas to get you thinking or that you can use that will always have interesting answers are asking, tell me a story about a time where you did something that you were so passionate about, or you did something that you were so involved in and you just loved doing. Tell me about someone very formative in your life or very formative in your faith that has shaped how you think and how you look at the world and has been very affirming to you. Tell me about something new that you learned that changed your outlook on life or that really inspired you. Tell me about a time when you were filled with joy and who was there and what was happening and why did you feel that way? Those are just some examples of deep listening questions you can use. And so those are my ideas for today on how to reflect more on vocation as a continuum, a continual process that grows throughout life, and for deep listening, and that we can learn a lot about our vocation through this practice of asking self-awakening questions. Thank you very much for giving this a try, for engaging with these deep questions. I really hope that it can be enriching and helpful for you, and that you can learn more about yourself and your vocation and your life through these conversations.